Kia ora and welcome to this video. We are going to chat through 5 movers and groovers for the New Zealand Kiwis of the land of the long white cloud, Aotearoa. And obviously it's a bit tricky right now because we are trying to predict eligibility choices. We don't know who's injured, we don't know who's having an off-season surgery. We've basically got no idea what these Pacific Championship squads are going to look like, but I do have 5 players who I think have risen up the ranks with their NRL seasons so far in 2025, many of which are ongoing because there's some finals footy being played. And I think we've got 3 here who are still playing finals footy. One of which is Xavier Willison. And Xavier Willison is the only player in this breakdown who has not played for the Kiwis yet. He has played for the Cook Islands. He's a Cook Island international. And Xavier Willison, 23-year-old forward for the Broncos. He is from Waikato. I think he's from Taharoa, cousins with Tanika Willison, and the illustrious Willison whānau. There might also be some whānau connections to Maida Martin and Tain Tuapiki, who also come from Taharoa. But just zoning in on the Willison factor, Xavier Willison and Tanika Willison may make their debuts for Aotearoa at the same time. Obviously, Tanika Willison pushing for Kiwis Ferns selection. And I've got Xavier Willison as probably the leading new player to debut for the Kiwis this year if he does get selected. It's a pretty funky journey because the earliest thing I can find of him is playing for Waikoa Bay, which is like the Waikato, I think it was like an old school Waikato rep team. And the Broncos, apparently they signed him from that, which was like a deep cut in Aotearoa footy, like at an under 15 level. Then he moved over to Australia. He was in the Broncos system. I think he went to Palm Beach Currumbin High School, and he is listed as a whatawhata junior in Waikato. And if Willison's fit, available, and he wants to play for Aotearoa, I think he will be in the squad. The funkiest development this year is we saw a bit of edge forward for Xavier Willison at the Broncos. He's played 19 games this season so far. He's got 4 starting at prop and 5 starting at edge, with 10 games coming off the bench, most of which he played through the middle. I think he had one game as an 80-minute edge forward, and he's also got a couple of 60-minute plus outings this season. And he has had a notable increase in his minutes per game from last season. 38.6 minutes per game last year, 44.7 minutes per game this year. And that has seen Willison move into Kiwis contention. He's a big bopper through the middle, and he does offer a little bit of edge middle versatility, which could boost his case for selection with the New Zealand Kiwis. And I think Xavier Willison has better edge middle versatility than Jordan Riki from Christchurch, who he's in his best year of playing edge forward for the Broncos, and he is my second mover and groover for the Kiwis. He did make his debut last year for the Kiwis on his home turf in Christchurch, which was a pretty epic moment. He is a Hornby junior, which is like, things are changing in Christchurch. We got a lot of there is a very impressive mix of grassroots clubs represented in Canterbury Rugby League, but Hornby are still the big donnies as far as producing Kiwi NRL players. And Riki has benefited a lot playing under Michael Maguire this season with the Broncos. His minutes have stayed the same, 78 minutes last season to 77.8 minutes per game this season. So he's averaging like, I can't do the math, but he's averaging a few seconds less than he did last season. But he is in his first season averaging over 100 meters, and I actually think it is his first season averaging over 85 meters per game. So Riki, high pedigree junior from Aotearoa, he was kind of, actually, if we're talking through it, he was the opposite of Xavier Willison. Xavier Willison, he was a deep cut of Broncos recruitment, and Broncos Kiwi NRL recruitment, they do a great job of those deep cuts around Aotearoa, but they also do a great job of the high pedigree juniors in Aotearoa like Jordan Riki. Xavier Willison didn't make many rep teams. I think the only rep team he made was the Waikawa Bay, but I think there might have been like a New Zealand under 17 kind of selection tournament team that he was part of. But Riki was a decorated junior, winning a lot of awards, always representing Canterbury, South Island, and making the New Zealand rep teams in the age group levels. And that flowed into the start of his NRL career, where he was just doing solid mahi at a very early age. And a lot of NRL fans, they want players to show the razzle dazzle early on, but I think the high pedigree players, they show their class and how quickly they settle into the grind of NRL footy. And Jordan Riki did that to start his career. He's like, everyone talks about his kick chase, his effort areas, all of that stuff was shown in his first few seasons. But this season, he has added more running oomph, more activity with the footy. And I kind of think Jordan Riki has grown into one of New Zealand's best edge forwards right now. The main dudes in that mix, Britton Nikora, who is coming off the bench for the Sharks. Maratini Okori's a factor. Scott Sorensen's a factor. You've also got a youngster like Jacob Laban on the rise in that edge forward bracket. Aside from Scott Sorensen and Jordan Riki are the only players starting at edge forward right now in the NRL finals. And I believe Jordan Riki's season has seen him grow into that starting edge forward role for the Kiwis. Last year in the Pacific Championships, he did do a bit of edge and a bit of middle, but I think we're going to see Jordan Riki just settle as a starting edge forward for the Kiwis. And not only has he's gone from like early 80 meters per game, 81, 82, less than 85 in all of his seasons, to over 100 meters this season, 109 meters, I think it was that I wrote down here. He has added 30 meters per game while playing the same amount of minutes. So that's very impressive, but it also flows into his tackle breaks. 1.5 tackle breaks last year to 2.2 tackle breaks this season, and his 6 line breaks this season is a career high as well. So that is the added oomph in a nutshell for Jordan Riki. But there's also a thing where he's gone from averaging 32.3 tackles per game last year up to 36 tackles per game this year, while maintaining a very high tackle efficiency, if you care about that. So basically, Jordan Riki is playing the same amount of minutes. He's added 30 meters. He's doing a whole lot more attacking stuff, and he is making more tackles. And to me, this is Jordan Riki tapping into the potential that made him such a high pedigree junior in Aotearoa, and why the Broncos signed him, why the Broncos put him into the NRL at a young age. And now we're seeing Jordan Riki find a groove with the Broncos so far this season, building on his debut for the Kiwis. And also, I think Erin Clark made his debut for the Kiwis last year, and he's my third mover and groover that we need to discuss. Moving from the Gold Coast Titans to the New Zealand Warriors, no surprises that he has added almost 20 minutes per game from his 2024 season. 38.8 minutes per game up to 57.5 minutes per game. And that means a lot more work. So all his stats are up. This is his first season over 100 meters. I think he's doing 147 meters per game. We've talked about it all season. I thought he was the Warriors' best player this year. He was their leading runner in the forward pack. He's the leading offloader, 1.5 offloads per game this season. He added an offload, 0.5 offloads last year, 1.5 offloads this season. And Erin Clark was the main passer in the Warriors forward pack. Manurewa Jr., who was a very high pedigree junior, and then he kind of chilled out for a couple of years, but now we're seeing Erin Clark tap into his own potential. Fantastic year for the Warriors, moving from like a hooker small forward to an awesome small forward, and he was the leader for the Warriors meters, post-contact meters in the forward pack, offloads, and passing. So Erin Clark debuted for the Kiwis last year with a good year playing for the Titans. He's added 20 minutes per game. He's doing way more offloading, a lot more running, and he's found his level of quality, his level of class. And Erin Clark, he needs to be in a top 17 for the New Zealand Kiwis. And if he's top 17, Naufahu Whyte's top 17 as well. Naufahu Whyte, if we think back to last year's Pacific Championships, Naufahu Whyte was one of the best players for the New Zealand Kiwis. And he's only got better this season. Bay Roskell Jr. from Auckland. Pretty interesting yarn about his journey to this point, because he was recruited by the Roosters while he was still at Kelston Boys High School. And I think back, he was like a solid academic at Kelston Boys High School. He was playing first 15. He was playing rugby league. And that's the type of, like the Roosters do their own deep cuts in Kiwi NRL recruitment, like the Broncos. Couple of similarities there, because the Roosters do get the high profile juniors. Like if we think back to when they signed Christian Tuipulotu, that was all over the headlines. Roosters taking Christian Tuipulotu out of the Warriors system. They've always recruited the elite Kiwi NRL juniors, Benai Iowelu, Salisi Faketi. But then you get like how the Roosters recruited Satili Tupanuia from Auckland when there wasn't a lot of buzz about him. Similar with Naufahu Whyte. He was making rep teams. He was a very good player in Auckland, but people just didn't know a lot about him. And he was in the Roosters system for a few years while he was still at Kelston Boys High School. He averaged, it's all similar to Erin Clark here. He averaged 33 minutes per game last year, 54.8 minutes per game this year. So both Erin Clark and Naufahu Whyte were averaging 40 minutes, less than 40 minutes. Then they played for the Kiwis. Now they're averaging over 50 minutes per game following their breakout Kiwis campaigns. And obviously that means a whole lot more meters. Naufahu Whyte 77 meters per game last year, up to 148 meters per game. He's added a tackle break, 2.1 tackle breaks up to 3. He's always tackling at a high percentage. And the best thing about Naufahu Whyte is that he is, to me, he's one of the leaders in that Roosters forward pack. He's dependable, reliable, powerful, skillful. And I think he is, if we're talking top tier Kiwis forwards, we're going Fisher Harris, Tapane, Moses Leota, and Isaiah Papali'i. I think Naufahu Whyte is right there. I think he's better than Leo Thompson right now. How about that? And we'll see what his involvement is with the Kiwis coming up. There's a lot of forwards there, right? Like, so Jordan Riki, I talked about edge forward. Xavier Willison, his best role is middle forward. But then you've also got Naufahu Whyte, Erin Clark, and Leo Thompson, and the 4 top tier lads that I just named. I think Griffin Neem is out injured at the moment, and it's going to be very interesting. A lot of Kiwi selections are going to be very interesting, even though they have a very settled group available to them, because the Kiwis can select Dylan Brown to be in their halves, but Dylan Brown wasn't playing NRL footy in the halves for the Eels, so that's a weird situation. Another weird situation is Nelson Asofa-Solomona, who for maybe he's going to be suspended because he just seemed to get suspended every game, and he hasn't been playing that great for the Storm. So if Griffin Neem's out injured and Nelson Asofa-Solomona is just like, right, you weren't doing too much in the NRL, so we're just going to go with some younger forwards. That's how you're going to see Naufahu, Whyte, Erin Clark, Xavier Willison, Leo Thompson, all in the same Kiwis team together. And another interesting player, he is a mover and groover. He just didn't make the 5, and we got to keep it 5-5, 55 for the CMAC. Hold that thought. Phoenix Crossland, small forward for the Knights, and I think Phoenix Crossland's going to be a very interesting player for the Kiwis because I've got Jeremy Marshall-King as my starting hooker. I think Phoenix Crossland is the next best player to have on the bench. So Phoenix Crossland can step in to play dummy half. Phoenix Crossland can also play small forward like Erin Clark. He can also play in the halves. He did play in the halves a few games for the Knights. He's played a lot of footy in the halves for the Knights over his NRL career and as a junior. So if we're thinking about top 17 for the Kiwis, having Crossland on the bench means that you've got another small forward, another hooker, and another half in your team on your bench. So I want to highlight Phoenix Crossland as well because, I don't know, he just looks good. He looks good. He's tough, he's powerful, he's skillful, and I think he has a lot of opportunities ahead of him for the Kiwis. It just depends on availability, eligibility of everyone else. And there's another weird situation. I'm getting off track here, but we got a couple weird situations. Dylan Brown, Nelson Asofa-Solomona, and the Waiheke Ram himself, Brandon Smith, who has got a bit of an issue going on. Some people, I like Brandon Smith as a rugby league player, right? It's super powerful. To me, he is the better version of Erin Clark and Phoenix Crossland, but he's just got a lot of shenanigans floating around him. And the Kiwis could select Dylan Brown and Brandon Smith and say, yo, none of your other shit matters. Just come into Kiwis camp, be with the boys. We'll lift you up and we'll get the best out of you. They could do that. I think that's what they're going to do with Dylan Brown. I don't know if they're going to do it with Brandon Smith, mainly because the depth in this specific position. I do think Brandon Smith is better in this role of small forward dummy half than Erin Clark and Phoenix Crossland, but not that much better where you select them always ahead of those two. So I don't think Brandon Smith's going to be in the Kiwi squad, and we'll see how those weird situations play out. I did allude to the 55 C-Mac, and that is the one and only Casey McLean, who is my 5th year 5 me mover and groover for the Kiwis this year. I find it weird or interesting how all the eligibility chat that there is around International Rugby League State of Origin, none of the Aussies talk about the fact that Casey McLean was born and raised in Sydney, played New South Wales under-19s midway through 2024. By the end of 2024, he's playing for the Kiwis. He's playing for New Zealand. Casey McLean, again, if we're talking the best teenagers in rugby league, to me, Casey McLean is the best. Casey McLean, he's a much better rugby league player right now than Lachlan Galvin. So if you're talking teenagers, make sure you're talking Casey McLean and obviously Leka Halasima as well. Leka Halasima, who we expect to play for Tonga. Casey McLean chose to play for New Zealand ahead of State of Origin. Some of these players, they might be making the decision knowing that the rules will be changed, but let's just deal on the facts as we got them right now. Casey McLean chose to play for New Zealand ahead of Australia and State of Origin. And there's you get all these stories about players choosing Samoa over Australia or Tonga over New Zealand. Well, let's be fair to every example that we have available. Casey McLean, born and raised in Sydney, Blacktown Junior, New South Wales under-19 representative. Few months after that, he's playing for New Zealand, he's playing for the Kiwis, and he's obviously awesome. It's early in the season. I was kind of like Matthew Tomoko and Sebastian Kris. Sebastian Kris, again, born and raised in Australia, has already played for the Kiwis, and I think he's a very useful squad member. Cover wing, cover centre, maybe even a bit of fullback. But so at the start of the year, I was like, Tomoko, Sebastian Kris, I love those two as the best centre combo available to the Kiwis. At that time, Casey McLean started the season on the wing. And Panthers had 4 losses in those 5 games where McLean was playing on the wing. But by round 10, he had 2 games as the 18th man as well. So it was a slow start to the season for Casey McLean. Then he moved to centre, and Panthers had 4 losses in the next 17 games with Casey McLean at centre. Let me break it down. 4 losses in 5 games as a winger, 4 losses in 17 games as a centre. And that tells you the story of Casey McLean's season with the Penrith Panthers. I still think Matthew Tomoko, and he's got a bit of mana there with the Kiwis, so I think he is the best centre. But Casey McLean has blasted into that equation. Fantastic runner. Like he busts tackles, he's fast enough for the breakaways, he's fast enough to push up and support. Easy mover and groover. But Casey McLean also has the hands that you need to have at centre. Centre is a very tricky position because it's not just running. You need to be quick hands, you need to be accurate, you need to be precise, you need to make the right decisions with and without the ball. Casey McLean has shown that as well. We saw against the Bulldogs in the finals win. Quick hands to get it to, I think, Brian Toto on the left wing, shifting the footy, but also a run threat himself. And now I'm thinking the best centre combination is Tomoko and Casey McLean. But the thing with Casey McLean, after debuting for the Kiwis last year, he had a slow start to the season. So I was like, maybe just chill out on Casey McLean for a bit. But then things turned around. Panthers caught fire. Casey McLean moved to centre. He dealt with that adversity. And now Casey McLean, to me, is top 17 like some of these other lads. And he's pushing Matthew Tomoko for the best centre available to Aotearoa. Cheer. Love yourself. Enjoy the vibrations around Aotearoa and the whole wide world. Do your best. Cowabunga. Talofa lava. Later, boat.